Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Rainbows Are Circles. My name is Julie, and I am delighted to have you today. Thank you so much for being here. It has been quite a long time since I put out a new episode, so I'm going to do a little quick life recap. I have not created a new episode in at least a year, maybe even, I think, a couple years. And I'm just going to be real with you guys. So I started this podcast back in like 2019, which is like 5 years ago, which is insane. And I was so into it when I first started. I was so gung ho about it. I was really excited. I had all these ideas. I had a lot of energy around it. And I started off and made I think I made like 20 or 30 episodes over the course of a year or two. And there was a lot about the podcast and making it that I enjoyed. Like I enjoyed talking to people. I enjoyed interviewing them. I enjoyed the people that I was meeting. But there was also a lot that I didn't enjoy, like editing, like obsessing about things being perfect and re-recording and re-editing. And like it was really not pleasant. And I actually didn't even realize until a little bit later after the fact, after I stopped making the episodes, that I was being such a perfectionist about the whole thing. And what's kind of funny and also a little bit sad is that I didn't know that I was a perfectionist. I always thought my sister was a perfectionist because she is in a lot of ways, but I didn't attribute that characteristic to myself, which I think is really funny. But because now it's really obvious to me, and like I've done a lot of healing around these perfectionist tendencies, because really perfectionism, it's like based in fear. It's based in the fear of not being good enough and not doing something well enough, and a fear of being judged, and like a whole lot of like these fears and wounds that we have. So that's where my perfectionism was coming from. And anyway, what was my point? Anyway, I stopped making the episodes because it wasn't fun anymore. I was spending so much time creating them, editing them, and interviewing people, and like it just wasn't I wasn't getting the amount of listeners that I wanted. I wasn't getting a lot of feedback. I wasn't receiving enough validation. And so I felt like it wasn't worth it. I felt like not very many people were listening. I felt like it wasn't good enough. And that's why there weren't that many listeners. I felt like I was like wasting my time. I felt like I was a failure. And so I didn't like straight up quit, but I just lost my steam and my excitement around it, and I just stopped. And this is actually a pattern that I have. Whenever something isn't as successful as I want it to be, as quickly as I want it to be, then I just stop. I lose all motivation. I lose my excitement for it. I feel stuck and stagnant, and then I just stop. And, not to beat myself up about this, but like, it was really frustrating for me because I wanted the podcast to be successful. I wanted a lot of people to listen to it. I wanted it to have a lot of followers. I wanted to somehow monetize it so that I could, do that for my living, or at least have that supply part of my income stream. And I just didn't feel like I was getting there. And so I stopped. And, looking back now, I can see how a lot of that was rooted in my ego and, my insecurities. And I wasn't coming from a place of just wanting to give and to serve and to have fun and provide something of value to the world. It became like a way for me to validate my worth. And then when I didn't feel like it was validating my worth, then I just like then I just quit. So now that I'm like, it's been a few years, I've had a lot of realizations. I've grown a lot. I've healed a lot of my, sort of these childhood wounds and insecurities. And they're not totally gone. I'm not saying like I'm like super, well, I'd like to think I'm like superwoman in some ways, but like, I'm not saying that I don't have these insecurities at all anymore, but I just don't want those things to hold me back from doing what is meaningful and heartfelt for me anymore. Like I'm just kind of done with that. And quite honestly, like I don't have the freaking time to not believe in myself and to not nurture these parts of me that really want to come through and that really want to have some sort of a positive impact on the world and on myself. So I'm getting like kind of emotional sharing this but I think that's actually a good sign because it means that like this is real for me. And like like my emotions and I just, people's emotions, when you talk about something and you get like really stirred up about it, it's because something is very real. It's like, it's either, it's so true and authentic for you. And that's why like you get choked up about it. Or it could even be like, you get so emotional you don't expect to. And that could actually be an indication of some part of you that needs attention, that maybe isn't healed, that's wounded, that's hurt. That's like a whole, podcast in and of itself is like healing the inner child and our wounds from the past so that they're not controlling us and not holding us back in our lives now. But I don't remember my point. I guess my point was I'm back to doing the podcast. I'm wanting to do it a little differently this time. I'm wanting to do it from a place of just really being as open and authentic as I can be and not obsessing about perfection. Just bringing my real self forward, bringing forward whatever is top of mind for me that day or that week. Because I think, when I'm going through something, I often find that like a lot of other people are also kind of experiencing and going through similar things. And so if I can come on the podcast and talk about them, then maybe I'm not only like helping myself through that process or through that experience, but whoever else is going through that as well. So anyway, I'm excited to start again. I think I don't really know what my schedule is going to be like, but I'd like to do at least one episode a week and, do them from a place of not, wanting, not from a place of like ego and like needing to have a certain number of followers or needing to make money off of this podcast, but more I want to come from a place of just wanting to do this because I have this like pull, like this calling to do it and letting that be enough. Cause like, I don't know, why, I don't know who this is going to reach, but like doing this just feels like a thing that I want to do and that I'm called to do. And I don't know what the outcome's going to be, if any. And I think that's probably the best place for me to be right now. Just doing something for the sake of creation, for the sake of following like an intuitive calling, an intuitive hit. And just kind of being in that flow of life. And I really love that idea of being in the flow of life. I don't know if you've ever heard of Shakti Gawain, but she is kind of like a spiritual teacher that's written several books. One is called Living in the Light. The other one I think is called Developing Intuition. She was on Oprah and talked about her book, Creative Visualization. She does a lot around like visualization and manifestation. She actually passed a few years ago, and which was I was so sad when I heard that because I wanted to interview her for the podcast, and then I realized she had already passed. But she's incredible, and she talks about um, being guided by the universe. And like, how do you know that you're being guided? And this is, this taps into intuition, because I think intuition is just listening to those inner voices, or however like your intuition speaks to you. There's different ways, but like sometimes it's a feeling you get. Sometimes it's just like this knowing. Sometimes it's like a thought or a voice in your mind. So when we listen to these intuitive hits, that's when we are like in flow with the universe. And she says, like, when you are in the flow, you feel alive, you feel energetic, you feel motivated, you just feel like it's the right thing to be doing at that time. When you cut off your intuition, when you don't follow that flow, when you kind of stop that flow in its tracks, you feel like a loss of energy. And I think she described it as like a deadening of energy. It's like you feel a lack of motivation. You feel maybe sad or down. You feel a loss of energy. You feel blocked. And when you feel that way, that is often a sign that you are not allowing the universe to move through you and to move with you and to kind of guide you. And so, applying that to like just this example of my podcast, like I started to feel with my podcast, I started to feel a deadening. I started to feel a lack of motivation, almost a resentment. Like I just didn't want to do it anymore. And, looking back, I can see that that was a sign for me to just pause and step back and reflect on, well, what is going on here? Because I didn't want to keep doing it if I wasn't excited about it. And now that I've had some time to like think and reflect and look back, I can see that my motivations and my thoughts about what it meant, what not having a lot of listeners meant, was that I wasn't good enough. I was having these limiting beliefs that I think were subconscious. I don't think I was, actually consciously thinking these things, but I had these beliefs like, I'm not good enough. I'm not a good interviewer. If I was, I would have more listeners. This isn't making me any money. This is a waste of time. Blah, 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 blah. So I was having all of these thoughts that were like making me feel blocked. And now that I've had time to sort of understand them and release a lot of those insecurities and a lot of those beliefs, because now I don't believe those things. Sometimes they'll try to sneak in and like, rear their ugly heads. But I'm in a different place now where I'm like, no, that's not I might cuss a little bit because again, I'm just trying to be myself and like sometimes I cuss. So I hope this doesn't offend anybody, but like it's not flippin' true. Okay, maybe I'll say flippin' or fudgin' or something. Like that's not true. Like it's not true that I'm not good enough. It's not true that nobody was listening. There were people listening, and actually like a lot more people were listening, I think, than I actually knew. Because like you don't get reviews and you don't get everyone who listens to something, like you don't reach out to whoever whoever the podcast person was and tell them about it. Like you consume a lot of content and you don't always like, leave a review. So there was a lot more going on, I'm sure, than I actually realized. But like because of these limiting beliefs, like I wasn't even allowing myself to be open to the possibility that maybe my podcast was good. Maybe people were listening. Maybe, maybe I didn't suck. So anyway, I don't have those beliefs anymore. At least they're not as strong as they used to be. And so now I just feel like a lot more I feel a lot more open to just making these episodes for the sake of making them, because I have things that I want to share, because I am always learning and always reading and taking workshops and like just getting so much great information and knowledge that's helping me. And like, maybe all I'm here to do with this podcast is just help to disseminate some of that information so that it can help other people too. And so, if you'd like to come with me on that ride, then that's what's going to be going on. I will still, interview people. I think I just will probably have more episodes where I'm just doing them solo and kind of talking about, what's top of mind for me. Maybe something that I learned that day. Maybe some bit of inspiration that helped me, and then I can share it with you. So, really, I just hope that this is a place for you to come to feel inspired, to feel supported, to feel lifted up. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. That's just a little life update from me so that if you have been listening to the show for a while in the past, like you kind of know what happened and why I stopped. And if you're a new listener, thank you for being here. And I hope that you continue to tune in. Again, I'll just be sharing a lot of my learnings around, how we can create the types of lives and live the kinds of lives that we want to, how to be more in control of our emotions and how we're feeling on a day-to-day basis so that we're not just being pushed around by our circumstances in our lives, and just, tools for better living, tools for how to communicate better, tools for how to be kinder to ourselves, tools for attracting and manifesting the things that we want, because we are attractive beings. Our thoughts are magnetic and they, attract our reality to us. So it's really, really important for us to be aware of our thoughts and know that our reality is a reflection of our inner state. So if you're looking around at your reality and what's in your life and you don't like it, it's really important to recognize that we need to turn inwards and notice what needs attention in our mental, emotional, physical bodies so that we can address those things, and then that will then reflect in our physical reality. I hope that makes sense. And thank you for tuning in. If you have a topic idea that you want to hear about or a guest that you'd like to hear interviewed on this show, please let me know. You can put it in the comments. And I think that's about it. I wish you all a beautiful day, and let's leave on this little tool of gratitude. So as we finish up this podcast, try to think of 3 things that you feel really, really grateful to have. Let's just do that together. Take a moment, take a deep breath. What are 3 things that you just feel so grateful to have, and feel them and feel that gratitude in your body? And just as you're feeling those things, letting a smile come on your face and just noticing how it feels to connect with that gratitude and to smile, and notice how quickly you can shift how you feel and create a positive feeling and vibration in your body. And this is a practice. This is something we can practice regularly so that we can regularly feel good. I'm not saying we have to feel good all the time, but we can practice and create these feelings on a more regular basis so that we can live our lives feeling good and grateful and happy as much as we can. So thank you for tuning in. I wish you all a beautiful day, and I'll catch you on the flip side.